it's certainly my honor and my privilege to be here, and I want to thank Chairman for being here, Chairman Carper, Chairman Issa, and I know that Ranking Member Coburn would be here if he could. And to you, Mr. Dodaro, I want to thank you. This report is so important. As Chairman Issa was speaking, I couldn't help but think about the fact that unless we had this kind of report, people would assume, I guess, that nobody's watching. That's partly what this is about. We are oversight committees, and it is our duty to make sure that government is functioning properly. As I've said to my constituents many times, one of my greatest goals and one of my honors of being on this committee is trying to make sure that government works good and right for them. When government does not work properly, my constituents and our constituents suffer. And so one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that the taxpayers' dollars are spent effectively and efficiently and for the very things that we allocate them to go towards. And obviously the very big news this year is GAO's decision to list climate change in its high-risk report. This landmark action by the nonpartisan experts at GAO, and by the way, I want to send some great respect to GAO for the work that GAO has done and continues to do. They are probably one of the finest organizations in our government. I want to thank you and your staff. Please extend that to them. But this GAO report is a wake-up call for Congress to finally start addressing this issue. GAO warns that climate change is real. Its impacts are already being felt, and its consequences will be devastating if we continue to ignore it. GAO warns that climate change is real. Its impacts are already being felt, and its consequences will be devastating. And I know Chairman Issa is very concerned about this issue, Chairman Carper, and certainly and I am. And as I listen to my good friend Chairman Issa talk about maybe the states should take be more prepared for these incidents. When I saw the devastation of Sandy, I don't know whether states would be prepared to do it. States, my state of Maryland is probably one of the best-run fiscal states in the country. And if we had something on the level of Sandy, we would be in major trouble without the help of the federal government. And it may be that we need to look at, and by the way, and I tell my constituents this too, that somebody's going to pay. Somebody's going to pay. It's either going to be the federal government paying to rescue and help our people, it's going to be the state government helping, or it's going to be the locals. But somebody is going to pay, and maybe we need to kind of look at how we are going to do that, because when we reduce the tax dollars, the income on the federal level, or that money going out on the federal level to states, then that means states, some taxes have got to go up on state levels. And I believe that governors, maybe we ought to have governors come in and talk about this too, and to do what the chairman just said. Maybe they need to come in and give us some ideas of how they are preparing and where they're going to get the money, and to be honest with us. Be honest with us and tell us that they are not going to tax their taxpayers, that they're not going to tax their citizens. And I guarantee you, Republican or Democrat will come in here and they will say, no, we're not going to tax them. They're going to get the money from somewhere. And so we've got to really look at that. But I agree with the chairman. We've got to figure out exactly what the role of the federal government is in these areas. And I'm sure you will talk about that, Mr. Dodaro, in a few minutes. We didn't mean to put you on the spot just on climate change, but it's the first time that you all have really made this a big deal, and I think we need to look at it. In this report, GAO finds that climate change poses particularly significant financial risks to our nation's economy, including agriculture, infrastructure, ecosystems, and human health. That's a lot. GAO also warns that our government is not well positioned to address this fiscal exposure, and GAO recommends that Congress and the administration start robust planning efforts to deal with this crisis. I want to commend Mr. Dodaro and the other staff at GAO for making this historic decision. I know it must have been difficult. I know you must have known when you started delving into this area that you would hear various kinds of kind, gentle, and tough statements. But that's why you're there. Not necessarily to tell us what we want to hear, but in the words of the President, tell us what we need to hear. And so based on the facts and what you've done, we thank you for doing a great job. And last but not least, there will certainly be some who will criticize your actions today. But your report makes crystal clear why this is exactly the right step and why critics can no longer afford to bury their heads in the sand. For decades, GAO sounded the alarm on the most significant risks facing our country and our government. Now, with regard to climate change, Congress has an obligation to respond to GAO's warnings through vigorous oversight, responsible funding decisions, and legislation to address the growing threats to public health and our economy. And again, I want to thank Chairman Ice. I want to thank his staff, and certainly you, Chairman, for taking on this task of making sure our government runs properly. And it's so, so very, very important.